Welcome to the Legal Merry-Go-Round.
Welcome back to the Legal Merry-Go-Round with attorney Paul Samakow, a longtime personal injury lawyer helping injured people throughout the DC metro area get treated fairly after an accident. I'm Lisa Mosby, and today we're talking about something that causes instant panic. The other driver has no insurance, or worse, they leave the scene. These situations feel overwhelming, but there are protections people don't always realize they have. Welcome, Paul. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. It's a pleasure as always.
Paul, when someone is hit by a driver who takes off or admits they don't have insurance, what are the first things people usually misunderstand about their options?
I think the normal knee-jerk reaction is, "Oh no, who's going to take care of me? Look, my car is all banged up, and oh my goodness, now my neck hurts, and who's going to pay for the medical bills because I don't have health insurance and I don't have cash reserves to even go to the hospital today." It's like panic sets in. I mean, that's the way you started this is absolutely correct. I think most people don't understand what protections they really do have. So I think panic is the word here. I mean, and it's not inappropriate. It's quite normal.
And many people have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage without realizing it. In everyday terms, how does that part of a policy actually work?
If they have insurance, they have these coverages. It's required. It's automatic. The insurance companies have to put this on your policies, and this applies in Maryland and D.C. And Virginia, which is where I practiced law for now 46 years. The way that it works is very simple. Your insurance becomes the insurance of the other party, the one at fault. It becomes their insurance. So if they don't have insurance or if they flee the scene and they don't tell you who their insurance is, you use your own insurance. And it is then as if it was the other person's insurance. And then we get into a discussion of, well, what does it cover? It covers the damage to your vehicle, things like rental, repair. If your vehicle is destroyed, they call that a total loss. And then the other category is the injury issues. You're hurt, you go to a doctor, you go to a hospital. So it'll cover medical bills. Uh, and then it covers other things that we as lawyers obtain for you when you hire us. Things like lost wages, if you've not been able to go to work. And there's a very, very broad category, which some people recognize the phrase that is used, pain and suffering. Well, that's limiting in my view. I don't like to limit those damages to just those two words and what they might describe. I like to use lots of other words that describe even more. Disruption of your life, aggravation, inconvenience, stress, nervous, upset. And if I had all afternoon, I could probably go into the dictionary and find a whole lot more. But it covers all of those things.
So, if the at fault driver disappears or refuses to cooperate, what does making a claim against your own policy mean for the injured person?
Well, again, assuming you're the injured person, it means that you get to have a financial recovery for all those things that I just described, all the things that relate to the vehicle and the injury claim. What people are often very upset about and concerned about when they first learn, or if they're aware that they can use their own insurance, is a concern about making a claim because they somehow erroneously believe that it's going to adversely affect their insurance premiums, and it doesn't. And so the insurance company has to provide these financial benefits. They can't refuse to do it. But again, if you have a situation where someone flees the scene and you are fortunate enough to get their driver's tag number, the car's tag number, and you make a claim to your own insurance, they're not just going to roll over and say, okay, we'll start paying. They're going to investigate and they're going to find out who the owner of that insurance is. And they're going to find out the owner, excuse me, they're going to find out who the owner of that vehicle is based on the tag. Uh, And then they're going to do an investigation and see if that individual had insurance. And a lot of times people hit and run and they have insurance. But when it's determined that there is no insurance, then your own policy, your own UIM or coverage kicks in.
And you mentioned people don't want to make a claim for fear their rates are gonna go up. Um, if they use this coverage, how do you explain situations where that fear is or isn't accurate?
We tell them, and more often than not, they'll believe. But I've had over the years many clients who are just very afraid because they've had their insurance rates go up, but they go up for other reasons. They don't go up because they use their coverage. And I try and give them information and examples. So, as an example, I like the movie theater example. You stand in line because it's a exciting movie that you're going to go see with your family, and you pay, what is it now, $15, $20 a ticket or something like that. It's ridiculous. So you stand in line, you get your ticket, and you go in and you sit down. And then somebody comes over and taps you on the shoulder. You look around and turn around and you say, "Well, what can I do for you?" "Oh, sir, well, you're sitting in a seat. We're going to charge you $3 extra for that." And you look at them like they're crazy. Say, "No, excuse me. I just bought this ticket. I have the right to come in and watch the movie." "Well, yes, you can watch it, but if you want to sit, it's $3. Well, we know that's ridiculous. So that ticket buys you the right to sit down in the movie theater. It buys you the right to stand in line to buy popcorn. Of course, then you got to pay for the popcorn. It buys you the right to go and use the restroom facilities. They can't charge you extra for these things." And so the analogy is that you pay premiums to have certain coverages on your automobile insurance. One of them is a coverage that is called uninsured motorist. And again, this is what we're talking about here today. It's abbreviated UM. They can't charge you extra for using it. You already paid for it. And most of the time people go, "Oh, okay." And once in a while, I've had clients who are just so skeptical because their experience has been premiums have been raised, but they don't understand they were never raised for using benefits. They were raised for something else, but they confuse that because it was a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. But that's in their heart that it's going to increase my premium. And so then I say to them, "Okay, hey, go ahead and call your agent and ask your agent." Now, the next thing that I like to discuss with them is the concern that they have. What if they're right? What if I'm wrong? What if the premium is raised? Okay, so right now they're sitting here in my office and they have a damaged car, which is going to cost 4 or 5 or 6 or 12 or $15,000 to repair. And they have injuries. And they went to the hospital and they had a bill of $1,953. And that included some tests from x-rays and the emergency physician doctor. And their neck is still killing them and they need to go get physical therapy or see an orthopedic doctor, go to a chiropractor. So we're looking at another 4, 5, $6,000 in medical bills. So if they're right and they don't use the coverage because the premiums will go up, then they've saved themselves, what, $50, $100? But if they're wrong and they don't use the premium, they don't use the insurance because they're afraid the premium is going to go up. So great, they save 50, 60, $70, but now they're out $8,000 to $10,000. I mean, it's it's a brainwash that the insurance industry has perpetrated upon America. Don't use your insurance because your premium is going to go up. But with uninsured motorist, that's not true.
So, Paul, what types of evidence or information matter most in a hit and run situation, especially when the other driver can't be identified?
Well, you want to see what you can do to make a description of the other driver. Was it a man or was it a woman? The approximate age, the race, the type of car. get your cell phone out. That cell phone is an extraordinary piece of equipment for evidence gathering. Take photos, take a photo of the vehicle, take a photo of the license plate on the vehicle. All of those things will be very helpful to ultimately give to the insurance company so they can make an investigation and determine if there was insurance on the part of the at-fault driver.
And in cases involving an uninsured driver who stays at the scene, what tends to cause delays or complications that people don't expect?
Well, again, I mean, it's just a matter of, your insurance company doing an investigation. So if I've got a guy who hits me and gets out of the car and apologizes, I'm so sorry, and I'm embarrassed, I don't have insurance. You take that information, you get all the person's identification, the vehicle, everything you can gather, and you call your insurance and you say, okay, this is what happened. And he told me he didn't have insurance. And again, your insurance company is going to do a quick investigation and make a determination. And then your insurance company will cover it, assuming that he was accurate and not lying and that he did, in fact, not have insurance.
And I think of this myself, what are those limits? When injuries are serious, policy limits become a big issue. How do you help clients understand what can and cannot be recovered through uninsured or underinsured coverage?
Well, again, yes, you asked an excellent question, Lisa. Um, Limits are often a problem, and it becomes a problem in both situations where the other person does have insurance and when they don't. Typically, there's no difference in terms of the potential for the amount of the claim, one versus the other. Um, so it's not special just to uninsured motorists. But again, I like to use examples that people can understand. I say to people, "You're very, 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 very thirsty, and you want 5 bottles of water." And so you go to the store with the expectation that you're going to, buy 5 bottles of water. And when you get back to the cooler, oh, there's only 1 bottle. And you go up to the clerk and you say, "Excuse me, I'm really thirsty and there's only 1 bottle of water. Is there any more bottles?" The guy says, "No, I'm sorry. We're all out of water. That's the last bottle." So when you leave that store, despite that you wanted 5 bottles and no matter how thirsty you were, you've only got 1 bottle of water. The discussion is you can only get what there is. So I encourage my clients to get high limits. In Maryland, DC, and Virginia, we have limits that, sometimes are uh, not as good as we'd want them to be. I encourage my clients to get $100,000 of liability insurance coverage, and it will then match the uninsured motorist coverage. So if you have 100 in liability, you'll also have 100 in uninsured motorist. And when you have the 100 in uninsured motorist, no matter what happens, that's all you can get. Now, to have a case where you're going to get 100,000, and this is the injury claim I'm talking about now, had nothing to do with the damage to the car, the property damage, or the repair, or the payment for a destroyed or total lost vehicle. This is just the injury. 100,000 limit means that no matter what happened, that's all you get. So you could have had knee surgery and 6 months of therapy following, and the total medical bills were $173,000. You're only getting 100,000. You could have them cut off your leg. You only get 100,000. Your relative passed away, died because of the injury. The survivors, the relatives, only get 100,000. Now you say, well, that's not fair. Well, okay. That's what you asked for. That's the premiums you're paying. You want more? Get more. So I'll back up and share a little story. When my daughters turned 16, they got their driver's licenses. And being a good dad, I paid for their insurance on their vehicles. But when they turned 18, now they're in college and both of them had part-time jobs. I said, okay, sweetie, it's time for you to start taking over making payments for some of the things that are yours, including your automobile insurance. And I showed them the policy and they looked at it and I had gotten $1 million of insurance coverage for them. And the premium was not insignificant. It wasn't ridiculous, but for the coverage, it was appropriate. And they looked and they said, well, we don't need that much. We don't need $1 million. How about if we get less? And I said, well, you can do that, but what's the value of your life? What's the value of the potential of a catastrophic injury? What's the value if you hurt somebody and they get very, very badly injured? We don't want anybody going after you personally, and we want to protect you in case they didn't have insurance. So the $1 million is why I got that coverage to protect you against them, making a claim against you for the liability side of it, and to protect yourself. So there's enough money if, heaven forbid, something really, really, really bad happens. So they squawked and complained, but they both still have $1 million in coverage. You can get whatever coverage you want up to a certain limit. I don't know if an insurance company would give you 10 million as an example, but the point is you get what you ask for. It's a contract. I'm going to paint your house. You give me $100. You give me $100, I'll paint your house. Well, what if you want me to paint the inside of the house? You got to give me more. So we negotiate. What if you want me to paint your neighbor's house because you're a generous person? Huh? You got to give me more. It's the same with an insurance contract for automobiles. You get what you pay for, and therefore we have limits.
So, Paul, for listeners who feel stuck because the other driver vanished or had no coverage at all, what do you want them to know about the protections they still have? And where do you want to leave this with them today?
Check your automobile insurance policy. Again, my statement to you, my hope to you, if you're listening to this, and if you are, thank you very much. I didn't serve popcorn today. I'm sorry, but next time, maybe, who knows? Give us your address. We'll send you some. I'm just kidding. We're really not going to send you popcorn. The point is, check your automobile insurance policy. Make sure that you have a minimum of $100,000 in insurance coverage for liability and for UM. Now, Lisa, I want to just share one bit of information because we didn't quite get to it. I wanted to explain to folks what the difference is between UM, which stands for uninsured motorist, and what they call UIM, which is underinsured motorist. Let's suppose the other person has low insurance. They have insurance, but their policy limits are low. Let's say they have 50,000. You can use your own insurance if you have more in Maryland and Washington, D.C. So if you have 300,000 and they only have 50, you could potentially get up to another 250,000 if you have a policy in Maryland or in Washington, D.C. That's underinsured. They didn't have enough to properly, fully, and fairly compensate you. Now, in Virginia, the law changed about a year ago. It's a wonderful law. Now you can add your UM or UIM coverage to the liability of the other party. So in the example I gave, if they only have 50,000 and you have 300,000, now you have a total available to you of $350,000. People don't understand that, but it's an important distinction to understand how these coverages work. And the first thing you need to do is check what your coverages are. So that's what I tell people. And the next thing I always tell people is, hey, being out on the road is a privilege. It's a dangerous thing. People get hurt all across the country every single day. The reality is people die every single day because of vehicle accidents. So be a little careful. Just take your time. You're going to get there. Nobody's going to get upset that you were 1 minute late. And as always, I tell everybody that I always talk to, eat your vegetables.
Paul, you've inspired me for sure. I know my first call on Monday will be calling my insurance agent because this was valuable information. And I don't think a lot of us are aware of it. We are not necessarily educated by our insurance agents. So thank you for investing time and your energy into educating us and helping us to make sure that we have the best insurance available for ourselves going forward. Folks, that's it for today's episode of The Legal Merry-Go-Round. If you've been injured by an uninsured driver or in a hit and run and you're unsure where to turn, Paul and his team are here to help you understand your rights. We invite you to visit samakowlaw.com to schedule a strategy session and get more information. And don't forget to like, subscribe to the show, and share this episode if you know somebody who might need it right now. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.